HAF Hindu American Foundation 20 years ago. What was the reason why you started it, and how do you see 20 years later on?
Yeah, when Suhag Shukla and Asim Shukla and Nikhil Joshi, when we started it, our focus was we need to have a strong voice for Hindu Americans in the United States. So we know that America is the richest country in the world. India is the most ancient civilization, along with Jews and Israel. But India is a 1.4 billion person country. There are 1.4 billion Hindus, roughly, worldwide. And we needed to have a strong voice to represent our ancient civilization, our values, who we are, in front of the policymakers and the public of the most powerful country in the world. Hindus in America had set up mandirs. They had done a lot of charity by sending money to India. There are professional groups that had been set up, but there wasn't any group focusing on Hindu Americans, the second generation, and making sure that journalists, elected officials, politicians, educators, and the public understood Hinduism and the issues of concern to us as Hindu Americans and issues of concern to our civilization.
How do you see this growth in last 20 years? The key
Yeah.
achievements of Hindu American Foundation.
Yeah, our growth has been, great. We still have, of course, a lot more to do. But I tell you, when we go back to the founding years of the Hindu American Foundation in 2003, we've come a long way. In the first 5 years, we were all volunteer. We went to Capitol Hill, which is in Washington, D.C., and we were talking to policymakers about who we were. One of the congressmen first said, "Are you Shia or Sunni?" Even though he knew we were from the Hindu American Foundation. One of our early successes in Washington, D.C. was to get Diwali recognized. It took 3 years, and the House of Representatives and the Senate recognized Diwali with resolutions. And now you can see that Diwali is celebrated at the White House, with the Vice President, and in the U.S. Congress, and all across different state and local governments across the country. But it took time to get there. And I hope that newer immigrants to America understand the investments that have been made by prior generations and by the Hindu American Foundation to get to where we were. Some of the other achievements were getting textbooks to explain Hinduism more accurately. For example, talking about how Hinduism is the only religion, major religion, that considers the female divinity, or the role of people from all backgrounds, all communities, all castes to Hinduism scriptures, and making sure Hinduism is taught with the same criteria and the same balance that other religions get in American textbooks.
You think that, as you said, there's still looks like there's more awareness about Hindus and Hinduism in this country than it was 20 years ago. But still, we see Hindu phobia on the rise. Why is it so?
Hinduism is not as easily understood by most Americans because most Americans are Christian. They come from an Abrahamic background. So when they look at different religions, they can't understand that Hinduism is not just a religion. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking about life. And they're looking for a one book, one founder, certain rules and laws that have to be followed. Well, Hinduism or Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma is all about pluralism. It's about offering many, many different paths for someone to reach their goal. If their goal is to find truth, if the goal is to find God, if the goal is to limit their karma, the goal is to find the deepest spiritual truths. That's what our dharma offers. So it's harder to understand. The other
One of the challenges I think that the community you people face about raising funds, right? Can you tell us about the? I think you're the largest one who is funding HAF, and first time just a huge amount to be paid, given in charity by
Yeah.
an individual for a Hindu cause. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people forget that um, most of the support our community groups get, it's not coming from the richest 1%. It's coming from people who just have passion, who are committed, who are really committed to our civilization. And collectively, the founders of the Hindu American Foundation have contributed roughly $4 million to the group that we have been involved with and leading over 20 years. My wife, Tanvi, and I, we have contributed $1.5 million to the Hindu American Foundation thus far. We've also contributed $1 million more over the last 15 years to other Hindu and Indian organizations and causes. And over the next 8 years, we're making a pledge of $1.5 million to pro India and Hindu organizations. And out of that, we're going to give $1 million to the Hindu American Foundation. And we're very proud of that. And I say this to all of you who are viewing this to realize that I don't have a startup company. I don't have any side businesses. I'm an emergency doctor on a salary. My wife is a fitness instructor and a jewelry designer. We're not making millions of dollars a year. We don't have stock options. We're doing this because it's our dharma, it's our duty. This is how we do our karma yoga. And in America, the Hindu American Foundation is running on a budget of about $2.5 million. We want to get that to 5 million next year, 20 million by the end of the decade. The reason is that in America, the richest country in the world, where our community is the most educated and richest community, meaning that in the history of the world, the Hindu American community in America is the most well-off community ever in the history of humankind. We are spending less than $1 per Hindu American for advocacy. The number that Muslims and Khalistanis and Sikhs and Christians are spending is upwards to $50 per member of their religion in advocacy. We're not spending enough. And if we don't do that, then this country won't understand us for who we are. India is now where it was 300 years ago. It's one of the top civilizations in the world. And it's going to be there for a long time. But are we, as Hindu Americans in the United States, are we where we need to be in terms of doing our part to make sure we and our civilization are understood, setting the stage for our children to be in a better place in the future? You're gonna get them educated. You're gonna get them well off. But are you making sure that they're in a place where their beliefs, their values are understood? We need to set up institutions to do that, and that's what the Hindu American Foundation does. And that's why my wife Tanvi and I and all of our board members, we're all fully committed to the cause.
So, last question: what is the biggest challenge that the Hindus in the US are facing today?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we're facing both globally and here is the lack of a firm understanding of what's at stake for us as a civilization. Our civilization has survived for a long time when other civilizations disappeared, but to sustain that, to make sure that you or your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren don't become the victims who are now footnotes in history. The Hindus, Jains and Buddhists of Afghanistan, the Hindus of Bangladesh, the Hindus of Kashmir who 30 years ago were kicked out. If we don't want our future generations to 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 years from now to be those kind of footnotes, we need to stand up and create institutions that are going to sustain us, whether it's a strong government in India, or whether it's strong NGOs that promote our culture and religion or advocacy like the Hindu American Foundation. So the biggest challenge for all of us is to give more back than we are. If Hindus in America are probably giving 1% back to charity, many other religions require 10% to be given back. We need to raise the level of giving so that we create those institutions that are going to sustain our civilization for another 5,000 years, so that we don't face a Holocaust, so that we don't disappear from the face of this planet.